On the evening of October 22, 2013, Philip Chisholm's mother, Diana Chisholm, contacted the Danvers Police Department to report her son missing. She explained that Philip, a 14-year-old student at the local high school, had failed to return home after school that day. With growing concern, Diana informed the police that Philip had recently moved to Danvers from Tennessee, and that she had never experienced any behavior like this from him before. Recognizing the importance of locating Philip quickly, the Danvers Police Department acted swiftly. They posted a picture of Philip along with a description of his height and weight on the department's social media networks. These posts helped spread the word about the missing student and encouraged anyone with information to come forward. Additionally, the residents of Danvers received a reverse 911 call informing them about Philip's disappearance and providing them with crucial details about his description. While Diana Chisholm reported Philip missing, Colleen Ritzer's parents were also growing concerned about their daughter. Colleen, a 24-year-old math teacher at Danvers High School, never returned home after work that day, and her parents started to become worried. Colleen Ritzer was a regimented young lady and rarely deviated from her routine without letting her mother or father know. She faithfully followed a schedule. Her dedication to her work was unmatched, and her love for her students was evident in her every interaction. Officer Neil Hovey with the Danvers Police Department was concerned about Philip Chasm and went to check on Old Route 1 north of Danvers for the missing teen. As he scoured the rural, ice-isolated area with very little lighting, Officer Hovey spotted a figure walking in the unsafe area on a bridge that narrowed down the dark highway at 1228A. Officer Hovey pulled his patrol vehicle over to the side of the road and exited. As Officer Hovey stepped out, his eyes met a young man in shorts, a zip-up sweatshirt, black socks, and sneakers. Philip Chisholm stood there, backpack hanging loosely over his shoulder. Officer Hovey, a seasoned and experienced officer, noticed several alarming details about Philip Chisholm. First, he was alone and walking in an area that was not safe at that time of night. Second, Philip was dressed inappropriate for the weather, wearing shorts despite the cold and damp conditions during the exchange. Philip stared past Officer Hovey as if the police officer wasn't even there. Officer Hovey asked Philip where he lived, and Philip replied that he had nowhere to call home. To Officer Hovey's disbelief, Philip claimed he had been wandering the streets for days. However, the officer noticed something peculiar. Philip did not appear to be disheveled or unkempt as one would expect from someone exposed to the elements for an extended period. Concerned about Philip's well-being, Officer Hovey decided to frisk him and felt plastic in his pocket. Officer Hovey asked Philly to empty the contents. Philip complied, and out came a driver's license, insurance card, and credit card. These documents did not belong to Philip, they belonged to Colleen Ritzer. Officer Hovey asked Philip how he had come by the credit card. Philip claimed that he had found the card at a grocery store. However, when asked for specific details on what shop he had found the card, Philip hesitated and said he didn't know. Upon reaching the station, Officer Hovey began sorting through the contents of Philip's backpack. To his astonishment, he found several disturbing items that raised red flags inside Philip's bag. Officer Hovey discovered a woman's purse and female underwear. Further investigation led Officer Hovey to uncover a box cutter covered in a reddish-brown substance. Recognizing the substance as blood, the officer became deeply concerned. He cautiously asked Philip whose blood it was, and was shocked when Philip responded that it was the girl's. Officer Hovey left the room momentarily to make a necessary call to the Danvers Police Department. While he was gone, another officer remained in the room with Philip. This officer asked Philip where the girl was, and Philip replied that she was buried in the woods. Concerned about the girl's well-being, the officer asked Philly if they could help her. Philip's response chilled the officer. He simply replied no. The officer looked over at Philip and saw that he had brown-red stains on his sweatshirt sleeves and a ski mask bunched around his neck, so the officers decided to seize Philip's clothing and sneakers. While officers were dealing with Philip Chisholm, Officer Steve Belair headed to Danvers High School to look for Colleen Ritzer. As Officer Bald Deser arrived, he began gathering information and waiting for security camera footage from the school. This footage would provide crucial insights into Colleen's whereabouts. After she finished teaching for the day, Officer Baldessire met with his fellow officers to gather information and share updates. He learned the team had stumbled upon several significant clues. They discovered Colleen's bag, a recycling bin, shoes, and clothing near a running trail near the student parking lot. Additionally, officers dissed Colleen's personal items in a brush. Near the path upon examining the recycling bin, the officers noticed what looked like blood. Another officer who searched the school's premises stumbled upon what looked like blood in the second-floor woman's bathroom. This location was in close proximity to Colleen's classroom, which further fueled their suspicions. Officer Belair, who was familiar with Philip Chisholm's appearance from social media posts about his disappearance, observed a male matching Philip's description on the footage. At 2:30 p.m., the video showed Philip following Colleen Ritzer outside her classroom and strolling down the school's hallway. As Officer Belair continued to monitor the CCTV footage, he saw Colleen Ritzer enter the woman's bathroom on the second floor. Philip entered behind her, his intentions unknown. Several minutes later, Philip emerged from the bathroom dressed differently from when he entered. However, another chilling detail was the mask on his face, as if attempting to disguise himself. Philip walked out of the school and into the student parking lot at 3:16 p.m. He returned to the woman's bathroom on the second floor carrying a recycling bin. After a few moments, he left the bathroom with the bin in tow, pulling it outside the school and out of the camera's view. Chillingly, Officer Belair never saw Colleen Ritzer leave the woman's bathroom on the second floor when the Danvers Police Department learned that Philip Chisholm was safe. And with the police, the Massachusetts State Police took custody of the teenager. Philip was brought to the Danvers Police Department for questioning regarding the disappearance of Colleen Ritzer. In the meantime, a crime scene investigation with the Massachusetts State Police arrived at Denver High School and started to search where the bloody recycling bin had been found. Diana Chisholm arrived at the police station and was questioned by an officer during her interview. She expressed concerns about her son Philip's mental health. She mentioned that Philip was capable of snapping under the recent stress caused by her and her husband's separation. Additionally, Diana disclosed that there was a history of mental health issues within her family at approximately 2:00 a.m. Monsieur Philip Chisholm and his mother, Diana, were escorted into an interrogation room at the Danvers police station. As they entered, they were greeted by Trooper Bearer and Sergeant Philip Taney. Philip and his mother spent approximately 10 minutes speaking privately before the official interview began, while Trooper Basher and Sergeant Taney were engaged in conversation with Philip. Officers were standing on the other side of the wall, silently feeding information to the officers regarding the CCTV footage. The footage had shown Philip following Colleen Ritzer into a second-floor woman's bathroom, the very one Colleen was never seen leaving, and was later found covered in blood, while Philip Chisholm was being questioned. The air wing with the Massachusetts State Police and Denver's Fire Department arrived at the scene, utilizing their infrared technology to scan the area for any signs of Colleen cadaver, and tracking dogs accompanied by their skilled handlers combed the area around Denver's high school. Philip finally confessed to the officers that he had used a karate chop to incapacitate Colleen before slicing her neck twice with a box cutter. The details of the confession were chilling. He indicated to the investigators on a map where he dumped Colleen's body in the woods behind the school. Finally, at around 3:00 a.m., a forensic scientist stumbled upon a disturbing discovery in a dark and desolate area. They found a toe with pink nail polish poking through a small pile of leaves. The forensic scientist immediately called paramedics to the scene. The paramedics arrived promptly and began sifting through the dirt. Their search led them to the discovery of Colleen Ritzer's lifeless body. Despite the medics' best efforts, it was evident that Colleen had passed away. Her body was carefully transported to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy. Dr. Anna McDonald, a forensic pathologist, made a discovery. Male DNA had been found on Colleen's body. This DNA, when analyzed, shockingly matched the profile of none other than Philip Chisholm. Dr. McDonald discovered patia, or small hemorrhages around Colleen's eyes and mouth, indicating asphyxiation. Additionally, blood found on the box cutter, discovered in Philip's possession, matched Colleen's DNA, leading to McDonald to theorize that the box cutter was used to violently assault Colleen. Upon examining the body, Dr. McDonald observed multiple wounds on Colleen's neck. It was evident that her neck was slashed over and over in the same spot. Over St. in injuries, the autopsy report revealed that she had at least 16 wounds to her neck. Several of these injuries were fatal, and even the ones that weren't would have caused Colleen unimaginable pain. One of the wounds was so deep that it chipped her vertebrae. Based on the evidence, Dr. McDonald concluded that Colleen died due to sharp force injuries to her neck and asphyxia. By strangulation, the severity of these injuries made it evident that this was not a random act of violence, but a deliberate act meant to cause maximum harm as word spread around Danvers that Colleen had been murdered. Everyone was shocked, especially when they learned that the prime suspect was Philip Chisholm. It seemed unfathomable that such a horrific act was committed by someone so young. Philip Chisholm was charged with aggravated sexual assaults and murder. He pled not guilty to the charge. Despite Philip's young age, he was charged as an adult in relation to Ken's murder. This decision sparked controversy and raised questions about the treatment of young offenders in the criminal justice system. Some people argued that Philip's age shouldn't have prevented him from being tried as an adult, while others believed that the severity of the crime warranted such charges. Colleen Ritzer's students were devastated by her loss. They remembered her as a compassionate and caring teacher who always went the extra mile to ensure their success. The pain of losing such a beloved mentor was immeasurable, and the Danvers community came together to mourn her passing to honor Colleen's memory. Candlelight video were held, and the Boston Red Sox had a moment of silence for Colleen before the opening game of the World Series. Her impact was felt far and wide as people of all walks of life came together to express their grief and support her family during this difficult time. What in the world drove Philip Chisholm to assault and murder his beloved teacher Colleen Ritzer? According to the New York Post, it was rumored that Philip was infatuated with his teacher and snapped when she spurned his advances. A police source spoke to the Daily Mail and revealed that one of the stories circulating was that Philip harbored a big crush on Colleen. The source said that Colleen was friendly and approachable, which might have misled Philip into misreading her kind nature and making an advance on her. On a local website, Wicked Local Danvers, a classmate of Philip's, wrote after Colleen's murder that Philip was antisocial, tired, and out of it. Some students expressed concern about Philip's behavior, claiming that he frequently appeared withdrawn, drawn, and disengaged. However, no one could have imagined the depths of darkness within Philip. As Philip awaited trial, a judge threw out Philip's confession, citing concerns about his Miranda rights in the presence of an attorney during questioning. Philip's defense attorneys contended that Chisholm was detained by the police for over 3 hours following his arrest at approximately 12:30 a.m. On October 23rd, they asserted that Chisholm was handcuffed for the majority of that time and was not granted the opportunity to make a phone call. Moreover, they claimed that Chisholm had repeatedly requested food, but was denied. The judge penned a 48-page ruling saying that it was readily apparent that Philip's mother wanted an attorney present for her son's questioning. Despite Philip's waiver of his rights, the judge concluded that the court could not find beyond a reasonable doubt that he had knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily waived his Miranda rights. Crime scene investigators found cell phones belonging to Philip and Colleen obtained through statements. However, the court ruled that they would not be admissible as evidence despite this setback. Other key evidence, including the contents of Philip's pockets and a bloody box cutter, will be allowed to stand trial. In December 2015, Philip Chisholm went on trial for Colleen's murder. Essex County Assistant District Attorney Kate McDougall presented a strong case, arguing that Philip was focused and unwavering in his horrible plan. She maintained that Philip was not insane but calculated and deliberate in his actions against Colleen. However, Philip's defense attorney Denise Regan had a different take on the case. Denise Regan argued that Philip was in the throes of psychosis at the time of the murder. Regan maintained that Philip had no other reason for committing the terrible acts he did. And during the trial, the defense called Dr. Anthony Jackson, a forensic psychiatrist, to testify about Philip's behavior. After his arrest, Dr. Jackson claimed that Philip's behavior improved. After he was prescribed an antipsychotic drug, he testified that Philip's hallucinations and delusions diminished, and he seemed more alert and oriented. This evidence seemed to suggest that Philip's actions were influenced by his mental state. At the time of the murder, another notable witness, Dr. Richard Dudley, testified on behalf of the prosecution. Dr. Dudley, a psychiatrist who specializes in forensic evaluations, had observed Philly 7 times during his incarceration while he waited trial. According to Dr. Dudley, Philip heard voices and thought there was a ninja at the time of the murder. These voices allegedly commanding him to carry out different tasks played a significant role in Philip's decision-making process. Furthermore, Dr. Dudley alleged that Philip had been on the schizophrenia spectrum since childhood. He testified that while Philip had exhibited symptoms of schizophrenia in the past, his condition had deteriorated significantly, leading up to the murder. Schizophrenia is a mental health disorder that affects the way a person thinks, feels, and behaves. It is a chronic condition that affects about 1% of the population. People with schizophrenia may experience hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thinking, and social withdrawal. They may have difficulty distinguishing between what is real and what is not, making it difficult for them to navigate daily life. Dr. Dudley stated that Philip had recently expressed remorse for killing Colleen, saying that, if he had not heard the voices, he would have never caused. However, the prosecution challenged the doctor's testimonies. Alleging that Philip was fabricating or exaggerating his symptoms, they argued that his mental illness was not sufficient justification for his actions to present their case to the jury. The prosecution utilized powerful evidence, including surveillance tapes that recorded Philip following Colleen into the bathroom moments before her murder. These tapes provided crucial insights into the planning and execution of the crime. Additionally, jurors were shown graphic crime scene photos depicting the gruesome aftermath of the attack, including Colleen's escaping neck wound, made by a box cutter, to further provide a deeper understanding of what happened on that fateful day. The judge and jury were allowed to visit Danvers High School, the scene of the crime. This visit gave them the opportunity to witness firsthand the areas where Colleen was attacked and the murder took place. It was a deeply emotional experience for many, as it brought the reality of the situation into stark relief in a desperate attempt to sway the jury. The defense called Philip's maternal grandfather, Eduardo Barbie, to testify. Eduardo claimed that Philip's grandmother had experienced a mental breakdown in the mid-1970s and had been treated with electric shock therapy. Additionally, he informed the jury that several of his other daughters had also been treated for mental illness and spent time in psychiatric facilities. A classmate of Philip's also testified that his demeanor had undergone a significant change shortly before Colleen was killed. This classmate stated that Philip, who was once vibrant and outgoing, had changed and become quiet and withdrawn. The sudden shift in behavior raised suspicions among their peers. Despite the best efforts of the jurors ultimately found Philip Chasm guilty of Colleen Ritzer's murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole in 40 years. During the sentencing, the judge called Colleen's death brutal and senseless. The details of the murder were horrifying, and a testament to the unimaginable horror that Colleen endured. One might think that Philip's life sentence would mean that he would be the last the world would ever hear of him. However, that was not the case. In 2004, at the age of 25, Philip pleaded guilty to attempted murder, assaults, and battery with a dangerous weapon and kidnapping. These charges were connected to an incident that occurred in June 2014, when a Massachusetts Department of Youth Services employee accused him of attacking her in a similar manner to the way he murdered his teacher Colleen Ritzer. 1 year earlier, the youth services employee claimed that Philip followed her into a bathroom, pinned her against a wall, and tried to strangle her and attack her with a pencil. This chilling revelation only further solidified the fact that Philip Chisholm was a dangerous individual with a disregard for human life. After Philip pleaded guilty, he received a sentence of 17 to 20 years, in addition to the life sentence he had already received. In a powerful statement read to the court, the surveyor of Philip's assault shared her harrowing experience. The youth service worker wrote in a letter about the fear she lived with after the attack, unable to leave her bedroom for fear that Philip was waiting for her. Her words served as a reminder of the terror inflicted by Philip. Philip Chisholm is now attempting to appeal his case to the highest court in Massachusetts. His attorney Michael Schneider has argued that there was no question Philip was the person who murdered Colleen, but questions have been raised about the validity of his insanity. Defense Michael Schneider claims that the evidence leading to Philip's conviction was legally insufficient, and that the judge who presided over the trial was wrong to exclude expert testimony on brain scans that would have supported Philip's claim of mental illness. One of the key aspects of Philip's appeal is the inclusion of expert testimony on brain scans. According to Michael Schneider, These scans would have shown that Philip had a mental illness at the time of the crime. By excluding this expert testimony, Schneider argues that the jury was unable to fully understand Philip's mental state at the time of the murder. The news that Philip Chisholm was appealing his sentence sparked outrage among Colleen's loved ones. They expressed their anger and spoke to the media, expressing their determination to ensure that he remained behind bars. Colleen's family firmly believed that it was evident during the trial and in the jury's verdict that Philip's actions were premeditated, calculated, and committed on pure evil to them. The overwhelming evidence was crystal clear, leaving no room for doubt. One of the most frustrating aspects for Colleen's family and friends was that Philip had never shown any remorse. Philip's lack of remorse only further reinforced their conviction that he cannot possibly be rehabilitated. The thought of him potentially being eligible for parole if he is resentenced is something that they find unthinkable in their eyes. Colleen and their family were not afforded a second chance, and it is unimaginable that they would have to reconsider the possibility of reducing this convicted murderer's sentence for Colleen's loved ones. The idea that justice would not be served is unimaginable. They believe that the guilty verdict and the maximum possible sentence were well deserved. It is unfathomable to them that the perpetrator would even be considered for a lesser sentence to them. It is yet another painful reminder of the immense loss they have suffered. Following the murder of Colleen Ritzer, teachers across the country experienced heightened fear and anxiety. The realization that one of their own could be targeted and harmed by a student brought a sense of vulnerability and insecurity to the profession. Teachers who previously felt confident that they were in a relatively safe environment were now forced to reevaluate their safety measures and implement additional precautions to protect themselves and their students. In response to the concerns raised by Colleen Ritzer's murder, schools across the United States implemented enhanced security measures to protect teachers and staff. These measures included increased video surveillance systems, lockdown procedures, and stricter access controls. Schools also employed trained security personnel and implemented regular safety drills to prepare students and staff for potential emergencies. Those efforts aim to create a more secure environment and minimize the risk of similar incidents in the future. The murder of Colleen Ritzer also heightened vigilance and awareness. Educators became more attuned to their students' potential warning signs and behaviors. Teachers reported being more cautious in their interactions with students, more aware of their surroundings, and seeking assistance from school authorities when necessary. This increased vigilance aimed to prevent similar acts of violence from occurring and to ensure the safety of everyone on campus. Colleen's murder also raised concerns about teachers' safety when interacting with students. Teachers expressed fears that they could be targeted or physically harmed if a student became violent or hostile. In response to this concern, schools implemented training programs for educators to de-escalate potentially violent situations and report problems to authorities. Additionally, teachers received guidance on how to protect themselves during one-on-one interactions with students.